In this video, we'll talk about all the important things you need to know about smiling critters, and also discuss the new critters that may appear in the new chapter. Today we're going to meet the new smiling critters. I'll give you some information about them and also try to guess what we should expect from them. Make sure you watch this video to the end so you don't miss anything interesting and always be the first to know about the news from our favorite game, Poppy Playtime. And here we go. The company of funny animals that everyone knows as Smiling Critters has won the hearts of just about everyone who has anything to do with Poppy Playtime games. Fans create a lot of fan arts, argue among each other who is the coolest and best of them all, put forward various theories about them. However, most of them agree that we shouldn't expect them in the fourth chapter, because they all died at the hands of the main antagonist, Prototype. But don't be disappointed, because I have great news for you. In the new fourth chapter, we will see a brand new Smiling Critters cast, and I think you will love it as much as the previous one. So let's get to the announcement of the new Smiling Critters lineup. The first one I would like to pay attention to is Cutie Susie. She is a very friendly panda who at first glance uses philosophical phrases, telling us that the world is not only black and white. She also shows her kindness and says that she would be glad to show us the way, but after that her speech is interrupted by some interference, and what she wanted to tell us next remains a mystery to us. Perhaps she wanted to warn us of the approaching danger, or maybe it was the other way around and she wanted to trap us. What do you think Cutie Susie was trying to tell us? The next character we will see in the new Smiling Critters lineup is Sweet Sheep. This is one of the most interesting characters in my opinion. So what is Sweet Sheep? She is a sheep that is quite different from the rest of the characters, because she doesn't talk to us in a nice way. She talks tough and straightforward. From her cardboard we learn that she was pre-catnap, but what could that mean? Maybe she was Prototype's assistant before catnap, or maybe Sweet Sheep was a supervisor at Playcare before catnap and also had some kind of superpower that the kids liked a lot. She also tells us that the new Smiling Critters are too bright and then asks us to turn off the lights, telling us that you can see a lot more detail in the dark. What's your impression of this character? The next member of the new Smiling Critters lineup is Little Skittle. This is a squirrel who is very lonely. From her cardboard, we learn that someone is always following her, but when she tries to find them, they immediately disappear. Further into the conversation, she has a tantrum. She can't understand why she is alone, and she tells us that she is about to start eating herself. At the end of the conversation, she says she hates this place and herself. Another prospective member of the new Smiling Critters is Moody Moose, a moose who seems to be very shy. We learn from his cardboard that he can't even remember his name when asked. We also learn that he seems to be new here. He doesn't even know what this place is. He also tells us that he is homeless and asks for a bed. His speech, like all the others, is cut short by screams. The next new member of Smiling Critters that we can also expect to see in the fourth chapter is Crocky Rocky, who, as we can see from his cardboard, is a green dinosaur who offers us to be cool. Also from him we learn that he and Kickin' Chicken are brothers, and they were the coolest kids. Also he tells us about the situation with Bobby Bearhug, how they locked him in the closet. Later his speech is also cut short by a horrible scream. The next character is Riddle Roo, who appears to be a kangaroo. From her cardboard we learn that she is a collector of various things. She then decides to show us something from her collection, and it turns out to be human fingers. Her conversation, like all the previous characters, ends with a scream. I have one more character. This is Griffy Gingers. From his cardboard we learn that he is an avid joker. He once pranked Miss Delight by putting a sharp pin on her chair. Then he offers us to help him with his best prank, namely to hang a bucket of water over Miss Delight's office door so that when she opened the door the water would pour over her head. From the conversation we also learn that he got into Miss Delight's office and that she was doing something with her sisters. As you can guess, his conversation also ended with her screaming. Another one I'd like to name is Tiggy Tiger. When we meet his cardboard, he offers us to be friends and spend time together. Then he asks where his friends from Smiling Critters are. Then his mood changes abruptly, and Tiggy Tiger tells us that he hates them for leaving him and that his revenge will be harsh. And at the end of his speech, we hear terrible screams. The next newcomer to Smiling Critters is Snidey Spidey. He is, as you might have guessed, a spider. From his cardboard, we learn that he likes to scare people. He tells us that when he sees scared faces, it makes his blood boil. His speech, like the previous newcomers, also ends with a scream. Another newcomer is Bully Bolito, who immediately brags to us about his strength. He tells us to exercise to become as strong as him. In his conversation, he mentions Crafty Corn and tells us about his affection for her. His conversation also ends with shouting. And now I suggest we get to the equally interesting part, which is that I offer you my theories about the new Smiling Critters lineup. First of all, I would like to present not even a theory, but my expectation. namely that we will most likely see a new cartoon about them, and in it, we will see not only a new cast but also the one we were introduced to in the 3rd chapter. Because as we have already learned from their cardboards, they all know each other. Some of them are even related to each other, in case you forgot Crocky Rocky mentioned that his brother is Kickin' Chicken. My first theory is that the new cast of Smiling Critters in the 4th chapter will already be the main characters. I think they will be in some way like Catnap the servants of Prototype. They will do his bidding and keep the whole Playcare territory in fear, especially those who won't obey their god. Hence, we are likely to see new locations, because it would be strange if the locations remain the same and there will be so many new characters. I have one more theory, and it is that after the Hour of Joy, Prototype left alive only Catnap and chained Dog Day to the cage, and all the other Smiling Critters, both new and familiar to us, he killed and left only their mini versions. My next theory is not about all Smiling Critters, but about 2 brothers, namely Kickin' Chicken and Crocky Rocky, and it is that they escaped after the Hour of Joy and are hiding somewhere in Playcare territory or not far beyond it, and maybe in the new chapter we will see their reunion. After all, as we know from Kickin' Chicken's cardboard, he wanted to escape very badly, and I think he wouldn't have left his brother behind in this nightmare, and would have brought him with him. And that's not all. The next theory is that the Smiling Critters that we haven't seen in the game will appear in the game to avenge Prototype for his old friends. They will have a fight, but they will lose it. Thus, Prototype will become even stronger and closer to the fulfillment of his plan, which gives us hope that we will see not only his arm, but his whole body at the end of the 4th chapter. But do not forget that maybe they will not show all of them, as it was Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, but for example, they will leave only one of them alive, and he will tell us what happened to the others. So for example, I see Snidey Spidey as the survivor. Even when listening to his cardboard, we can hear his cruelty, because he tells us that his blood boils when he sees the frightened faces of people, so he could easily become one of the main antagonists in the 4th chapter and help Prototype in the execution of his plan. I think a lot of you enjoyed Crafty Corn. For truly, I can't find a single flaw in her. She was kind, sweet, and also really liked to draw. But you're going to say, what does Crafty Corn have to do with the new Smiling Critters? Actually, one of the monsters in the new cast has a thing for our unicorn, and I'm talking about the rather formidable Bully Bullito, and it is their story together that can be told in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. As we progress through the game, we'll make our way to a new location that has been destroyed by someone. I'll tell you later, of course, who the bully was who did it. So after we find ourselves in a new location, that after a few minutes we will hear the screams of help. As soon as we get closer, we will immediately see a familiar silhouette in the window, and it will be Crafty Corn, who will be desperately trying to get someone out of the rubble. When Crafty Corn sees us, she will ask for our help. Seeing that our unicorn really sincerely asks for help and not trying to trap us, we will immediately try to help her. And after we remove some debris, a huge horn will appear in front of our eyes and red wool around it. This is how we will meet Bully Bullito. After that, between us and these 2 Smiling Critters will begin a dialogue from which we will gradually learn who is the Prototype and for what purpose he tried to subjugate all the Smiling Critters. We also learn more information about Catnap and why he became one of the few who trusted the Prototype. And by the way, remember I promised to tell you about the one who destroyed the location where we found Bully Bullito. Well, it was Catnap, and he only did it to kill our bull. And since Smiling Critters have been living on Playtime Cavern territory for a long time, they obviously know this area much better than we do, and it is Crafty Corn and Bully Bullito who will be our companions throughout the game. And this will last until we meet the Prototype. And during the battle with him, our brave Smiling Critters will be on our defense and unfortunately will be killed by the Prototype or by one of his new assistants. And now I want to present you my favorite theory. Remember in the beginning of the video I mentioned such a character as Sweet Sheep, which according to him, was before Catnap. So I think that in the new part she will be Prototype's assistant. She as well as Catnap will have some kind of superpower. I hope that this ability will be much cooler than the already familiar cat. I also expect that we will be shown a VHS tape about Sweet Sheep in which we will be told why she was replaced by Catnap. I assume that there was some incident that caused this replacement. But of course there is a possibility that the developers will add new Smiling Critters gradually, not all at once, while revealing their stories in more detail. But I have a sad theory, and it is that we will not see them as characters. Maybe we will be shown their cardboards in Chapter 4 to tell us that they are there, but that's it. Of course, like many of you would like to know more about the new Smiling Critters lineup. I would like them to tell us the story of the Prototype incident and why Catnap became like this. But I think that this information will be revealed to us as we get closer to the release of the new version of the game. So what's your opinion on the new Smiling Critters? Who did you like the most, and who, on the contrary, did not like at all? Dog Day is the most underrated character of all, and despite the fact that he's been given the least amount of time, he's already managed to make a huge number of Poppy Playtime fans fall in love with him. I realized that many of you really want to know about his fate in Chapter 4 and if there is any chance of his return. Before we start, let's talk about who Dog Day is. Dog Day is one of the 8 smiling creatures that the developers have officially revealed to us. He is a very friendly creature who never wanted to hurt anyone, and unlike his companion Catnap, Dog Day did not obey the prototype and did not fight on its side. On his cardboard, we can hear a very interesting message that we should not stay here and we should run away. He repeats the same message later in his monologue. He also told us a lot of interesting things. Let's listen to what he told us.
Catnap. The prototype is his god, and this is what he does to heretics. These little toys follow Catnap to avoid that very fate. And in return, they are fed. We try to fight it. The prototype's control. I am the last of the smiling critters.
From his monologue, we can understand that he is the last survivor of all the smiling critters. But then there is a reasonable question why he did not say a word about Catnap, who was still alive at that time. Maybe after the betrayal, all the other smiling critters turned their backs on Cat and no longer considered him their friend. Well, and it was also Dog Day who told us that the prototype was Catnap's boss, and that we should try our best to get out of this place to save what's left of Playtime Co. But the most interesting thing for me was the fact that Dog Day could have become the prototype's assistant, and then his body would have been intact, but he refused. For what he paid for, and as he said himself, the prototype killed the heretic. In general, we can say that there was no malice in the actions or words of our unfortunate dog, and he is probably the only positive character among those we have not yet seen. And now the saddest part, after which you will discover all the secrets of Dog Day and get the answer to the main question. Is Dog Day really dead, and will he be able to come back in Chapter 4? Before the angry toys rushed to devour what was left of Dog Day, he begged us to run as fast as we could to find Poppy and help her. By the way, it was Dog Day who told us the truth about the smiling critters. They are all under the control of Catnap, and it is he who makes them do such terrible things just to survive. More specifically, Catnap feeds these toys if they obey him, and after the toys jumped on Dog Day's body and took it over, that's when the chase began. But it wasn't Dog Day that was being chased, it was just his body under the control of the toys, but luckily in the end we were able to escape and close the door right in front of him. And in that case you can say I'm crazy for speculating about whether he might survive, because it's kind of obvious that he's dead. But is it as simple as many people think, or is the short amount of time our dog was given no coincidence, and do the developers still have plans for this character? Let's settle this once and for all and find out if Dog Day is really dead or if he managed to survive. And if he managed to stay alive, will we see him in Chapter 4 and as who? Remember what I said a few seconds ago about the closed door, and that is the main key to wondering what will happen to Dog Day next. In the case of Miss Delight, it's actually pretty obvious because we've split her body into 2 pieces that can't be put back together. But let's talk about Dog Day. I have some theories about what really happened to him and what will happen next. Let's agree that you will listen to all the possibilities and then write in the comments which theory you like best. And if you don't like any of my theories, you can always write your own version in the comments. We all remember that Dog Day mentioned Poppy several times during his monologue, and that tells us that they know each other quite well and have probably seen each other several times. And now I'm going to tell you something you probably never thought of. Let's remember who Poppy mentioned but we've never seen. Of course I'm talking about one of the most mysterious characters in Chapter 3, Ollie. What if Dog Day is Ollie? Maybe he's the one who's been helping us all along, in which case I can safely say that we have a good chance of seeing him back in Chapter 4. After all, as I said, we can't be sure that Dog Day is really dead, which means that after we close the door, all the monsters that took over Dog Day's body could have just left him and left Dog Day to die, which means that our beloved Poppy could very well pick him up and perform some sort of rescue and bring Dog Day back to life. And in this case, our Dog Day will be one of the most ardent opponents of the prototype. And since I'm sure that Chapter 4 will be mainly dedicated to the prototype, most likely even somewhere in the beginning of the new chapter, we will get another call from Ollie, and after a few seconds we will see Poppy together with Ollie holding a phone, and this mysterious boy will be Dog Day. This next theory is a two-way theory, and it's actually the craziest one you're going to hear today. But I have no right to keep it from you, at least because you might smile a few times while listening. First, let's imagine the moment when the prototype and Dog Day met, and the prototype asked him to become his assistant, but Dog Day refused. I'm sure this happened long before we first saw Catnap, And after that, Dog Day realized that if he stayed alive as he was, he would surely die. And there's this crazy theory that in order to survive, Dog Day built a suit that looked like him and put it on someone from Smiling Critters. Like Bobby Bearhug, and pre-cut their vocal cords to make their voice rougher, so instead of Dog Day getting the wrath of the prototype and catnap, it was our sweet Bobby. That's the craziest thing you'll hear today, but I had to tell you. But what if you believe that Dog Day actually did something similar? He actually fought Catnap and got wounded but still managed to survive, and to avoid getting caught, he was able to construct a so-called puppet and provided it in his place. And in that case, we will definitely meet our Dog Day in Chapter 4. Let's look at another option for Dog Day's return in Chapter 4. As far as we understood from the conversation, the prototype really wanted Dog Day to obey him in addition to Catnap. That is, he saw him as a pretty strong character who could help him accomplish his plans. Do you agree that it seems very strange that Dog Day told us that he was the last of the smiling creatures, but on the cardboards of the other creatures, we can clearly hear their screams? So we can clearly understand that each of them refused to cooperate with the prototype and was soon brutally killed. But why was Dog Day the only one that the prototype just wounded and left alive? He could have been around for a long time, but no one touched him, and only after we met him did they try to kill him. I think the prototype intentionally left our dog to die so that he would agree to be his assistant out of desperation. But after Dog Day helped us, the prototype realized that he had no chance to make Dog Day his assistant, and decided to kill him so that after his death he could take his body and somehow reincarnate and achieve his goal for Dog Day. But unfortunately, in this case, we will only see the image of our dog in Chapter 4, and he will definitely fight against us. But you have to agree that it's better for us to forget him forever, as we saw him in Chapter 3, than to let him fall into the hands of a prototype. But what if all of this is just theory? Actually, there is that possibility, but listen to me carefully now. I've already said that theoretically, after the door closes, the critter's toys could just leave his body and leave him to die. What if we meet Dog Day in a new chapter in exactly the same place we last saw him, and he would be alive, but very weak, but still able to tell us something? That would be really interesting. And now it's time to summarize and answer any questions you may have. Dog Day is indeed the most underrated character who was given too little time. I would even say that it's kind of disrespectful to such a character. I, like many of you, would like to know more about what really happened to him, what he knows about the prototype and Catnap, Dog Day's version of the whole situation with Smiling Critters, and why Catnap was the traitor. Almost none of this information has been told to us, and it is this information that can help us and Poppy defeat the corporation's greatest evil. I think the developers realize how important Dog Day's character can be in the story of the new chapter. And considering the fact that even though we've only seen 3-4 minutes of Dog Day, he already has a huge fan base that insists that Mob Entertainment should bring back our dog. And I agree with every one of them, so I'm 85% sure that Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 will show us Dog Day. Are all Smiling Critters really dead? What if Catnap was the only crazy monster in their company, and the rest of the monsters were not influenced by evil? Even their toys are pretty hard to call evil. Catnap must have scared them into being so crazy and so hungry that they are willing to eat absolutely anything. I think that Catnap as the main villain of the third chapter deserves a separate video, but about all the others, we will now talk. And the first in line is Dog Day, whose death was shown to us in the third chapter. To be honest, it's still a mystery to me how he managed to survive until our appearance, considering that we only heard about the rest of the Smiling Critters a little later. Then all those copy toys show up and start eating the rest of our Dog Day's body, and then completely possessing him and taking control of his body. Most likely they will finish off Dog Day after a while, and we will never see him again, unless the prototype gets involved. But I want to draw your attention to an interesting detail. We saw Dog Day die, and we also heard his voice message on the card, and in that message, we were clearly told that we must rush to him as soon as possible. And what if we can also find out about the fate of the other characters, thanks to these cards with the silhouettes of our Smiling Critters? The developers also left us a very interesting clue. Do you remember a little 2D animation about Smiling Critters? In one of the episodes, we were shown sleeping or maybe monster critters, and at the head of all this madness, we see a calmly sitting Catnap. But that would be just a theory if it weren't for Dog Day. Take a closer look. His posture is exactly the same as when he died, so maybe all the other characters ended their lives in the same position. In fact, even if you look closely at Catnap, he looks the same as he did in the last minute of his life. Now let's talk about the ones we haven't seen yet. And the first one is Bubba Bubbaphant. We only see Bubba Bubbaphant in video references or as a little toy that has come to life. And in the Smiling Critters cartoon itself, we see him in this strange pose. Let's hear what he has to say to us.
I'm Bubba Bubbaphant. Hey, I remember you. elephant always remembers. Want to know what I remember about you?
The scream at the end tells us that our elephant is probably dead at the end of this dialogue. Maybe Catnap or the other smiling critters had something to do with it. And all of his phrases are probably references to the fact that Bubba Bubbaphant, like all elephants, has a very good memory. And unfortunately, the last thing he remembered was his death cry. Next on the list is Kickin' Chicken. We don't see his big version anywhere, so we can assume our chicken is dead. Let's not break tradition and listen to his cardboard version first.
Hey, I'm Kickin' Chicken. Wanna go outside and hang out? It's looking pretty rad outside. I've never been outside before. Will you come with me? I'm scared. Here, follow me. I'll step out first.
Well, this is a lot more interesting than listening to our Bubba. Am I the only one who thought we got the approximate location of Kickin' Chicken's death at close range? Apparently he walked out of his home location, into the street. Perhaps Catnap saw this as a betrayal. And indeed, that the chicken wanted to escape is very much like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Kickin' Chicken really wanted to do that, because what happened at Playcare after Joy Hour is completely insane. And maybe the chicken was more like one of those smiling critters who didn't want to support the prototype and Catnap. It was trying to leave the location, not necessarily the street itself. Kickin' Chicken could have just left Playcare, but unfortunately, that didn't save him from a sad ending, namely, a horrible death. Well, it's time to talk about the most controversial character of all the smiling critters. Meet Picky Piggy. Let me give you a little spoiler right off the bat. Picky Piggy doesn't scream at the end of his voicemails like the other characters, but instead says some very strange and very creepy things about his friends. Let's hear them together.
Hi there, I'm Picky Piggy. Let's eat. Roast beef, delicious. Grilled chicken, down the hatch. Seared elephant, yum. Slayed unicorn, mmm. Still hungry. Hey, what do you say you and I be friends?
The offer of friendship at the end was very tempting, but I would have declined it. You'll notice that she's pretty serious about the fact that she wouldn't mind eating her friends. Of course, we're not talking about all smiling critters, but the reference to Kickin' Chicken, Crafty Corn, Bubba Bubbaphant, I think, is obvious to everyone. And roast beef is a beef dish, so it was probably just mentioned for fun. Which begs the question, wasn't Picky Piggy in bed with Catnap? What if they worked together for a long time, but at some point Picky Piggy's actions seemed strange to him, so he decided to destroy her? Or maybe Picky Piggy wasn't very loyal to the prototype, so our cute cat decided to punish her. But, of course, he ordered 3 of his friends to be killed. And then there is the rather cute green rabbit Hoppy Hopscotch, who is not mentioned among these 3 unfortunate smiling critter. But what happened to her? No indication that she was killed by anyone I've seen or heard of. Speaking of voicemails, let's hear them.
I'm Hoppy Hopscotch. Wanna try hopping to the moon with me? On 3 with me. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Listen, this won't stop until we make it to the moon. 1, 2. No, don't look at your feet. None of that matters. Again. Jump.
And after this voicemail, I have 2 theories. Maybe Hoppy Hopscotch was just minding her own business, but something went wrong and she jumped too high and crashed to the ground. Or maybe she was trying to escape. And maybe Hoppy Hopscotch almost succeeded, but at the last moment a prototype or Catnap showed up and killed her. But to be honest with you, I'm more convinced of the first version. We're getting closer and closer to the last character. But for now, let's talk about the teddy bear, namely Bobby Bear Hug. By the way, she doesn't scream at the end of her tape like Picky Piggy, but at the same time, I didn't hear anything strange in her words. She certainly didn't say she wanted to eat anyone. She's just asking for help, like her spirit is still talking to us. Perhaps Bobby Bear Hug had faith and hope that someone could save her. When she found out her friends were dead, she was very scared and asked us to get her out of this creepy place.
Hi, I'm Bobby Bear Hug. Wanna know how much I love you? I love you to the moon and back. I'm crazy about you. I'm lost without you. I've been lost a long time. Please, take me with you this time. You won't leave me, will you?
To be honest, it was a little sad to listen to. And finally, let's talk about the character who might have survived. But first, let me explain something to you. There's a theory that each successive character is connected to the previous one, and judging by the fact that after Bobby Bearhug, we were shown Dog Day, who we realized was alive when we arrived. The next character after him is Crafty Corn, but you can object and say that this is complete nonsense, because in the beginning we were shown the most alive of all, Catnap, who only growled and breathed on his record. But let's not compare him with all the other smiling critters. Let's go back to our Crafty Corn and listen to what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Crafty Corn. Can you help me with my painting? Thanks! Now, can you give me some red? More red, please. Out? But we can't be out. You're hiding more red from me. I know you are. Give it here!
It's pretty interesting that she says we can't go outside, and that might at least confirm my earlier speculation that some smiling critters wanted to escape and tried to do so, but they failed and were caught. And you know what happened to them after that? That's why a frightened Crafty Corn says we can't go outside. Maybe she was just doing her favorite thing, painting, because it's all about the painting and the colors. She must have been talking to someone. I suspect it was Dog Day, and at that point Catnap could have heard her and then gotten rid of both Crafty Corn and Dog Day. So I have a theory that in the place where we met the dying Dog Day, Crafty Corn was quietly dying somewhere behind the wall, but we didn't even hear it. Or maybe he was eaten much earlier. Or maybe he survived. As you can see, these are all theories, but only the authors know how it really is. Well, write your own versions of what could have happened to our smiling critters in the comments. And that concludes our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye, everyone.